Let's get started with the isolation of the Congress party, because the Congress appealed to all opposition parties to join hands and boycott this midnight session. Remember, at this time, Finance Minister Jetli has left the Vigyan Bhavan. He's headed to Parliament in a short while from now. People are supposed to take their seats at about 10:55 is when this session formally begins. The Samajwadi Party, the JDU, have already announced that they will attend this midnight session. Among the attendees also will be NCP Chief Sharad Pawar. Here's the story.
A historic occasion, a landmark economic reform. But when the goods and services tax, which will replace 17 central and state taxes, rolls out at midnight, the opposition led by the Congress won't be there to witness the moment. But the boycott is not unanimous. While the TMC, DMK, Left and Aam Aadmi Party are backing the Congress, several others have broken ranks with them on this issue. Sharad Pawar's NCP, Nitish Kumar's JDU and the Samajwadi Party will be attending the event. Former UPA minister and prominent NCP leader Praful Patel even took to Twitter questioning the Congress's decision. He wondered what was the need for a fuss when the GST was passed unanimously in Parliament and approved by state governments headed by the Congress. The Congress excuse to skip the Parliament session had more to do with the timing of the session that reminds of the Independence Day than the GST itself. Party's Vice President Rahul Gandhi hit out at BJP, calling the GST rollout session a tamasha.
हमारे गांव में शब्द इस्तेमाल होता है, ये कोई अपमानजनक शब्द नहीं है। गांव में भी खेल तमाशा होता है, लोग इकट्ठे होते हैं। ये संसद का अधिवेशन नहीं हो सकता, इसका वो गंभीरता इसमें नहीं है।
The Modi government has played down the Congress absence, saying reforms don't wait for anyone. It points out that Manmohan Singh was a special invitee and every effort was made to accommodate the Congress.
जो शामिल नहीं होंगे उनके शामिल होने से वो रुकने वाला नहीं। कि कई बार कुछ सुधारों में विलंब निश्चित रूप से होता है, देरी हो जाती है, चर्चा ज्यादा होती है, लेकिन कोई ऐसा रिफॉर्म नहीं है जो आवश्यक था और इस देश ने किया ना हो।
The protests apart, the Congress's claims ring hollow. They were the original architects of the GST. And now, with many of the BJP's rival parties attending the meet, it has ended up doing what it feared the most. The opposition today looks as divided as ever. Bureau Report, India Today.
Joining us to talk about this special midnight session, our editorial director for publishing, Raj Chingappa. Welcome. Raj also has had a long day at the India Today GST conclave. Rajiv Dubey is the managing editor of Business Today magazine. We've got Nitin Desai, renowned economist, a champion of the GST. Also with us at this time is Jain. He's an expert on taxation. So thank you to all our guests. We also got lots of reporters on the ground in Parliament tracking this very closely. Raj Chingappa, to you first. This is a huge moment, and it almost seems as if some satellite is going to take off. There'll be a new GSLV launch or something like that, because this is actually a tax regime. That's Arun Jaitley talking about how fertilizer GST rates have been revised. Raj, we're looking at the opposition boycotting, but given the fact that all of them have been part of the process of helping the GST come into place, some of this boycott really is meaningless at this time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is the most important economic legislation in recent times. If you recall, comparable, let's say, to the ending of the license Raj, the reduction of direct taxes that happened in the late 90s, you had the opening out of the FDI
you asked
sector.
Jaitley this question. I want to ask this to you.
Yeah.
If you, and this is a question that's in everyone's mind, if you were to look at the GST and compare this with some of the other reforms that have happened, not just tax reform, but reforms per se, where would this rank in the pantheon of reforms?
I think very, very high, because it actually signals the economic integration of the country in many senses. I mean, After all, it's like 29 countries negotiating a tax deal, which is finally what happened in the GST Council. You have a federal council that has been set up to decide tax rates. You are now moving, not quite there, but one nation, one tax. So it may not be the best thing that has happened out of it, but it shouldn't be the enemy of good.
Nitin Desai, your sense, is this genuinely the mother of all reforms, the biggest reform we've seen, or is there a certain amount of hyperbole?
It certainly is important. As Raj said, basically, imagine if Europe were to come together and become one market. Would you not treat that as a major development?
Oh, absolutely. The fact that this is a major reform is not in contest. I'm saying,
I would say
compare this with direct tax reform that Chidambaram did, or 1991 when we ushered in liberalization. Is this
one
where
big
does this
difference?
rank?
One big difference, a constitutional one. This is we have basically developed a new process of action on constitutional matters, which is a center and states working together. Not the center doing one thing and the states doing other things, but the very fact that this was truly an exercise in cooperative federalism. That to me, and the very fact that the responsibility, the legislative responsibility, though it rests with the two parliaments, the decision making is in a council, which includes both the center and the states. So from a political and constitutional perspective, I would say this is this is perhaps unique. The other reforms were things which either the center did or some of the states may have done. But this is the one which is a joint reform. And remember this, that throughout, not just now, but right from the beginning when we started, 2000 onwards, we always had as a chair of the Empowered Committee of Ministers, somebody who was from a party which was not in the ruling coalition in the center. Ashim Das Gupta, then Mani, then later Sushil Modi, then I think
rather from the National Conference,
National Conference in Kashmir. Every time it has always been headed by somebody from this. I think is a major constitutional
Anand
step.
Kumar, in whose name the invitation for today's midnight session has been put out. Parliamentary Affairs Minister speaking at this time. Let's listen to what he's saying.
घटा दिया, इससे देश भर के किसानों को 1261 करोड़ रुपए का फायदा होने वाला है। नहीं तो 1261 करोड़ रुपए का बोझ किसानों के ऊपर आने का संभावना थी। इसलिए मैं मानता हूं और देश के माननीय प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र भाई मोदी जी, वित्त मंत्री माननीय अरुण जेटली जी और देश के जीएसटी काउंसिल के सभी मेंबर्स को मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा, बधाई देना चाहूँगा। यानी किसानों के, गांव गरीबों के राहत में एक बहुत बड़ा फैसला जीएसटी काउंसिल ने अपने आखिरी बैठक में किया है। और आज ठीक रात 12 बजे जीएसटी का उड़ान हो रहा है, जीएसटी का लॉन्चिंग होने वाला है। पूरा देश में उत्साह है और उम्मीदें बढ़ चुकी है। भारत एक देश, एक बाजार, एक कर प्रणाली, जो सपना 30 साल से हम देख रहे थे, आज उस सपना साकार होने का घड़ी आ चुकी है। और पार्लियामेंट के सेंट्रल हॉल में हमारे सभी सांसद और इस जीएसटी को माननीय राष्ट्रपति जी, माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी, माननीय उपराष्ट्रपति जी और बाकी सभी महानुभाव इसको लॉन्च करते हुए उस दृश्य को देखने वाले हैं। और ऐसे लग रहा है फिर एक बार स्वतंत्र भारत के इतिहास में सेंट्रल हॉल में एक नया इतिहास रचा जा रहा है। इसलिए मैं बधाई भी देना चाहूँगा और जो किसानों के राहत में ये निर्णय
Parliamentary Affairs Minister Anand Kumar explaining, and when you listen to Anand Kumar speak, it almost seems there's a satellite that's about to take off. It's only a new tax regime that's coming into play. I want to go across live to right outside Parliament. Joining us from there is our political affairs editor, Rahul Srivastav. Rahul, describe to us what's happening at Parliament at this time. I saw like the budget, a lot of GST papers being brought in. There are a whole bunch of dignitaries who've been invited. Who are the VIPs who are finally coming in, and what will happen around midnight tonight?
Rahul, what I can say is that the government is making a big splash as far as the unleash of the GST regime is concerned. The nation has waited for a very long time. Political parties have waited for a long time. And perhaps everybody who deals with taxes pays them or is dealing with taxes certainly has been waiting what exactly the final shape and contour of the GST regime would be. Still a lot of apprehension, and if one can talk about how critical the GST is and how it is going to be an evolutionary exercise as far as deciding what GST rate will apply on which commodity, how it will be levied, and how exactly would be the impact. Even at the last minute, barely a couple of hours before the GST will be released for the nation, we have one news that the GST rate on two critical components as far as agriculture in this country are concerned, fertilizer and spare parts for tractors, has been reduced. Now there were, if you notice, over the last few months there have been several farm protests because of one reason or the other. Primarily the protests were also happening because of the GST, because there were apprehensions that the higher tax rate on fertilizer and also on farm implements will definitely raise the price of agriculture costs, and that increased agriculture cost cannot be matched right now as far as the maximum support price is concerned. And that is why the GST meeting, council meeting today, in the last perhaps meeting before it becomes a reality, has decided to reduce the subsidy on fertilizer from 18 to 12%, and on farm.
Rahul, can I just get you to get your camera person to zoom into Parliament House, please? Because it looks like a beautiful spectacle. They've turned this into one big, the opposition is calling this a tamasha, but they've turned it into a big event. And there's a huge amount of buzz, almost like some big satellite about to take off. So just describe what's happening in Parliament. Get your video journalist to just zoom into the Parliament building, please.
Yes, if the camera can zoom into the Parliament building, although it's partially obscured by the trees here at the Vijay Chowk, it is almost as if the Parliament has been decorated traditionally for the Republic Day or the Independence Day celebrations. And inside, I've just come from inside, the first few members of Parliament have started trickling in as far as the function inside the Central Hall is concerned. I was there in the afternoon, and it's a flower-bedecked dais on which the President of India, Prime Minister, Speaker, Vice President of India, and of course, the former Prime Minister, Mr. H.D. Devegowda, and others would be sitting. Of course, if the Congress had not decided to boycott, then Dr. Manmohan Singh, ex-Prime Minister, seen, regarded as the father of the reform system in the economy, would have been there. In the first rows, we have ministers, cabinet ministers and others sitting. There will be Chief Justice of India, and then comes the rest of them. Interestingly, a break from the tradition, usually the places, Central Hall is reserved or preserved of the members of Parliament. But this time around, dignitaries, special invitees, nearly 100 of them who will be sitting inside the Central Hall, and also all the secretaries of the Government of India, perhaps to make the occasion momentous, will be sitting also on the floor inside with a special seating arrangement created for them. What top sources are saying, that seating capacity of nearly 1,000 has been created inside the majestic Central Hall of Parliament, and there sometime around 10:55, after the President of India drives into Parliament and his arrival is announced, then the function will start sometime around 11 o'clock. Definitely what one can say, that adding to the drama is also the fact that one Andhra Pradesh Congress MP, though the Congress is not coming to Parliament, is boycotting the function. One Congress member of Parliament of the Rajya Sabha, Mr. Anand Bhaskar, will be coming here sometime here and will be sitting on a dharna, protesting for the rights and the demands of textile, powerloom and handloom. What he's saying, that the taxation regime announced will be hurting their interests.
Stay with us, Rahul. You know, is this a bit over the top, Rajiv, in your sense? The opposition thinks this is, you know, grand self-promotion tamasha, said Jairam Ramesh, GST. But the other way of looking at it is that this has actually got more people aware about the GST. Otherwise, people are saying tax, hamara kya lena dena, are not interested. Now, suddenly people are trying to read up and find out more.
Well, it's amazing how much the government has managed to hype this up to the 0 hour. And the importance of 0 hour is actually more technical than anything else. It's not as if the network is going to start buzzing at 12:01 a.m. You know, actually the network is going to be tested for the first time on 16th of July, not even tomorrow, not even day after.
Why is it the 16th?
Because the 16th is when the network allows you to upload the invoices, and that's one of the biggest, you know, significances of the network. So this is more symbolic. And it's really fascinating, and the more I look at it, the more I admire the fact how it has been hyped to this extent, when really the significance of the 0 hour is more technical than.
No, we were speaking to some
else.
experts. They said that because this is a tax rate, you could have made the change at 7 p.m. also. It doesn't need to happen only at midnight, and therefore there is a certain amount of hype that's been generated, and there's a certain amount of excitement as well. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, you think?
Well, I'd say that they're taking a risk.
Why?
The reason is there's going to be a backlash over the next 3 to 6 months amongst traders and consumers. So in a sense, they're taking
amongst consumers as well. Why?
Yeah, because of the sticker shock. Today, when you and I go and buy something, the excise part is not shown in that price. Only the sales tax is shown. So you'll say 5% sales tax or something. But now that excise part will also be shown. And suddenly say, my God, I'm paying 28%. You know, you were already paying 28%. Only thing is, a big chunk of it was not shown separately.
We know, Jen, one of the biggest questions is how prepared is the GST network? You know, it's supposed to be able to handle 3.5 billion transactions, but it's never really been tested. Will it hold, or will the system just keep collapsing? What's your sense, Mr. Desai?
I would say that basically, to me, this is the greatest risk that you run.
So I'll tell you, we met the GSTN chairman last
He seemed,
week.
okay, I must tell you this,
yes.
He seemed quite nervous.
He is nervous.
He is very nervous.
He better be nervous.
He's nervous because they have set the capacity, but they haven't loaded the capacity and tested the capacity to the extent of 320 crore transactions per month. 60,000 transactions per second is what the network is supposed to be able to handle. They have done 2x redundancy, so 1.2 lakh transactions. Technically, the network should be able to handle, but will it handle or not? That we'll know on 16th of July.
Ajoy Kumar from the Congress and Narendra Taneja from the BJP are joining us on this broadcast. Mr. Kumar, I want to come across to you first. Just look at how beautiful Parliament looks. Even today, on two key agricultural use products, fertilizer and spare parts for tractors, we've seen the GST Council evolve a consensus, demands from states being accepted, rates being lowered. This really is the pet project for Dr. Manmohan Singh. Chidambaram worked really hard on it, Pranab Mukherjee tried. You know, wouldn't it have been great if you'd been there to take your share of the credit for former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh to be sitting on the front row and saying, yes, we've all together made this happen, which is a fact.
Rahul, the problem is this government is obsessed with credit taking, you know. The public service doesn't come under the domain of credit taking. You do it because it is in the interest of the country. And what we're objecting is to make this whole, like one of your esteemed colleagues in the panel said, the GST finally, actually the first invoice or downloading the data will happen only on the 16th of July. The Parliament midnight session has only been ever called at the independence, at 25 years of independence, at 50 years of independence. So the question again is, the government of India and Mr. Modi's government is obsessed with self-promotion for a bill which and it's remarkable, and I really admire the flexibility of the political ideology of the Prime Minister and the BJP, because they opposed it throughout and suddenly they seem to be the biggest champion. But the question again is, would we have, when Bangladesh was created, did we have a midnight session? Did we have a midnight session when our right to information was created?
Doesn't this sound, Dr. Kumar, a bit churlish? You know, if you didn't think of something, now the government has. Now look at, let me spin this the other way. If your representatives had been there in Parliament when GST was introduced, everyone would have said, yes, the Congress brought it, the BJP executed it. Now you've given it on a platter, the BJP gets full credit. For all the effort you made, you get very little.
Yeah, no, the question again is, if you look at the GST, and let's talk about the GST. The farmers have been given the grand total of 1,250 crores, which Mr. Anant Kumar says is a great help. If you look at it, it is 100 rupees per farmer at the most. The question again is this kind of whole, event management, what you call sound and light program of the Bharatiya Janata Party. There was VAT and sales tax, and I agree that it is a single tax. It is, reduce octroi, etc., etc. But is it the issue with the, we would have supported the Prime Minister if he called a midnight session on unemployment. Midnight session on all the violences.
Okay, let Narendra Taneja respond. Why not a midnight session on agricultural crisis, on unemployment? They are calling this a grand self-promotion tamasha. Narendra Taneja of the BJP responds now.
Well, first thing first, you see 47 created political union. Tonight, we the people of India are creating an economic union of India. It's a great, occasion, and India must celebrate the same way we celebrated on the 15th of August 1947. Congress, that's precisely the reason Congress is actually jealous. They don't know how to react. They took the decision to boycott first, and now they are trying to create reasons. You see, GST has been co-conceived, co-created, co-delivered by Congress, and now they've disowned the child. Just one day child and disowned. This is the character of this party. They think anything great in India can be done only by the Congress party. BJP or any other political party has no right. So they basically suffer from this crisis.
The BJP has a point here, Dr. Kumar.
GST, Rahul, all diseases were taken together.
That's the point. That's the point I wanted to make.
Congress was party to every single decision. How can they disown?
That's the point I wanted to make, Dr. Ajay Kumar. The reality is that, for example, at the GST conclave that we did today, we saw Anand Sharma get very angry that petroleum is not part of the GST, this is imperfect. And Jaitley came after him and said, if it's not part of the GST, please ask which are the states that are boycotting. The boycott or the opposition is led by the 6 Congress-ruled states. So your state governments are boycotting, then as part of your opposition, you are saying, why is petroleum not there? The Congress argument, it just seems as if you have to find some fault and therefore you're picking on what's happening. Whereas your state governments are involved in the process.
No, the question again is, see, now let's not, mistake Kabuki theatre for the policy. This is Kabuki theatre in its worst tradition. I mean, and Kabuki theatre is a great theatre, so I'm saying they're really doing a bad job. But the fact is that the GST we supported. We agreed with the GST, but like Mr. Chidambaram and all of us have been saying, including the Chief Economic Advisor, and Taneja Saab is a bright man, but they will refuse to accept that no country in the world has got a 28%. The highest, the developed nations have it at 16. We kept saying cap it at 18. Listen to us, they didn't. So that's a different issue. We support the GST. We totally abhor, detest, protest against this drama. This drama is obnoxious.
Does the Congress come across as genuine, or does it come across as a churlish opposition where they are boycotting something that they tried for years to make happen but couldn't?
Well, I don't know what their fear is, quite frankly. If they think that by doing it at midnight, it some way diminishes what Prime Minister Nehru's famous speech is, they'd be mistaken. I mean, public are not fools in this sense, right? They know the importance of independence, and whatever my friend from the BJP says, these are vastly different events that are there. People appreciate deeply what happened in independence. That's why we're all sitting here and talking in this station. And we know the various important events that have happened in the country. We're not going to forget it easily. Everybody remembers 1991-92 when reforms were truly unleashed. No one's taking away credit from the Congress on that, nor for the direct taxes that have been there, or nor for
absolutely.
So I think on this, I have no issues with the government actually having a midnight session, because, as we were discussing earlier, this is a tax that affects everybody. And it's my wife, my son, they're all talking about it. No one ever talked of taxes in this manner. Earlier we used to talk of direct taxes, but there's very few people who are actually paying income tax. But today, this tax affects everyone across the country. Any publicity that you give, though my friend Nitin does talk about the dangers of it, the fact is you're in it in any case. So it's better to talk about it.
But you run the dangers in any case, event or no event, right. Gala or no gala.
So I have no issues of them doing
We're
the drama.
We're slipping into a quick break. We've got lots of ministers reaching Parliament. The Prime Minister will be there as well. I just want to quickly read you through what the program is so that you know what to look out for. It's about 10:55 that the President will arrive at Parliament House. Everybody else will be there before that. 11 o'clock is when the President arrives in Central Hall. The national anthem gets played out. Then there are some introductory remarks by the Finance Minister. There's a film and the presentation on the GST at about 11:10 p.m. Then the Prime Minister addresses for half an hour starting 11:15 p.m. Then there's an address by the President of India, which is a 15-minute address. That's at 11:45. At midnight is the launch of the GST. There's some film that they've got ready. Then there's the national anthem, and at 12:05 is when the President leaves. Those are images of a beautiful Parliament House decked up to the T. We're slipping into a quick break. We'll go across live Parliament House. Dr. Arvind Virmani, one of the finest economic minds, joining us also on this broadcast. We look forward to introducing him to our discussion. With Parliament decked up for this occasion, PDT Achari, the former Secretary General of the Lok Sabha, is with us in our studios. Mr. Achari, there haven't been too many occasions when there has been a midnight session, but some would even say that, calling this a midnight session of Parliament itself is wrong. So explain the historical significance and perspective of what we're going to see today.
Well, I must say that it's not a session at all. So we cannot call it a session. A session of Parliament, is called by the President, and then members of both the houses assembled for a purpose, and it is all provided for in the Constitution. What is happening today, I would say, that is a function being held by the government.
Has any government held any function which is not a session at midnight?
No.
So this is the first?
This I think is the first occasion. But then what I'm saying is that we cannot call it a session. It's not a session of Parliament. Members of Parliament may be coming and sitting there, but sometimes we do hold some functions like this.
But never at midnight?
No, not this kind of a function. Certainly not at midnight. Well, there were two sessions which were held at midnight. For example, the 25th anniversary of independence and also the 50th anniversary of independence. And then, of course, 1947. These are three occasions when we had these sessions.
I want to go across live to right outside Parliament. Joining us from there is Supriya Bhardwaj. She's got some of the Modi ministers with her as they walk into Parliament. Let's very quickly listen to what the ministers have to say. They're going in and grabbing their seats before the President arrives just short of midnight.
Parliament, you can see behind me Mr. Ratan Tata from the Tata Group, who has just reached the Parliament at the moment. He will be entering from gate number 2, and from there he'll be heading towards central gate, that hall where this entire event is taking place. We already know that the who's who from the corporate world are present here, and they will be actually taking part in this GST event which is taking place at the midnight today. We'd like to have a look at the GST, it's Mr. Ratan Tata who's here, and he's heading towards Parliament. We'll try to get a word from Mr. Tata. Well, that is the corporate world's bigwigs who are present here. That's Mr. Ratan Tata at the moment, and he will be heading towards Central Hall. We'll try to get a word from Mr. Tata. Ratan sir, how big is the occasion, sir?
Just one line on GST.
Sir. How historic is the day, sir?
Please.
So anything about the GST and how historic is the day, sir?
No. Sorry about you. Sorry.
Well, Mr. Tata is going inside the Central Hall at the moment. He is one of the who's who from the corporate world. Mr. Tata, along with the other corporate celebrities, will be present during that ceremony at the midnight. With journalist Ashwin Hill and Supriya Bhardwaj for India Today in Delhi.
there to Supriya Bhardwaj for trying to get Mr. Tata to say something. He, of course, only had a sorry to say. But he's come, as have many other leaders from corporate India. Arvind Virwani joins us. How set are we? You know, the one constant parallel being drawn is with demonetization and what happened immediately after that. Do you think there will be woes of the kind that we saw immediately after demonetization was introduced? Or do you think that because we know that the GST is to be brought in, we know what to expect, therefore the disruptions are likely to be far lesser?
I presume that question is addressed to me. It was breaking a bit.
Dr. Virmani, it is.
So, demonetization was universal. Yeah, so demonetization was universal. It affected everybody in the country because everybody uses cash. This is very limited. People, a large number of traders, industry already pay tax. What is new for those people who don't pay the tax. So clearly, those who have been not paying any indirect tax will be strongly affected. But for the rest of it, it really depends on the procedures and how complicated or otherwise they are and how quickly they learn them. So I think that there's a fundamental difference, but there will be some disruption. That is correct. So the only thing which is common is that there is some disruption, but the degree would be quite different, because here it would be very selective and focused on those people who've never paid tax before.
No, but it's also a huge mindset change for them, Raj. You know, forget the likes of Ratan Tata and most of the big companies in India Inc. As you go down, there are traders. There are only 80 lakh, what Mr. Jaitley was telling us this afternoon, there are only 80 lakh people who pay indirect taxes. You know, that will be the number of traders in the capital alone, probably. So you've got mass evasion. India is a country where people don't pay their taxes, and suddenly they will be pressed to do so, and they'll obviously feel the pinch.
Yeah, I think there'll be some amount of disruption, but it is needed. I mean, you will get it anytime you put a tax like this or try to unify tax rates. The real issue is going to be a couple of things. We all have to have the discipline, including we as consumers. You know, we tend to go to departmental stores, we do not take bills, we don't do all these kind of things. There's a certain discipline that we need. On the other front, we need to look at the government also. You know, how are they going to, for instance, internet connectivity is going to be critical for the implementation of GST, because everybody depends on that connection to put their invoices in or whatever it is. Given our kind of internet connectivity, even at homes, you know, the problem that is, you could have problems. So I was talking, in fact, to the GST in chief. Yeah. I was talking to the GST in chief about this, and he said, look, we've devised the system. We understand that connectivity is really, really bad in this country in many places, and what they need is 2 minutes of connection every 5 days or 6 days.
Okay, some of the ministers are going in. Suresh Prabhu, Railways Minister, speaking as he enters Parliament. Let's listen in.
23 ऐसे स्टेशन है जिसके बारे में हम लोगों ने प्री बिडिंग का काम हो चुका है, जल्द से जल्द आगे की प्रक्रिया भी शुरू हो रही है। कुछ स्टेशन हम राज्य सरकारों के साथ करें, जैसे भुवनेश्वर है। कुछ स्टेशन डेवलप करने के लिए रेल के खुद के जो PSUs है, जैसे इरकॉन जैसे, वो कर रहे हैं, या मुंबई रेल विकास निगम लिमिटेड वो भी कर रहे हैं। हम लोगों ने मंत्रालय और कुछ ऐसे स्टेशन है जो डेवलप करने के लिए विदेश से गवर्नमेंट टू गवर्नमेंट बेसिस पे भी कुछ लोग आके इंटरेस्ट दिखा रहे हैं, वो भी कुछ उसमें डेवलप करने की शुरुआत करेंगे। तो राज्य सरकार प्राइवेट पब्लिक पार्टनरशिप PSU के तहत, रेलवे के खुद के PSU के तहत, या हमारी अलग PPP मॉडल के ऊपर जो हम पब्लिक बिडिंग कर रहे हैं, यानी अलग अलग तरीके से स्टेशन का रीडेवलपमेंट का काम हो रहा है। हमने कुछ समय पहले मैंने विनती की थी वेंकैया नायडू जी से, और उन्होंने मान लिया था कि हम एक MOU करेंगे मिनिस्ट्री अर्बन डेवलपमेंट के साथ, और वो लोग डेवलप करेंगे स्टेशन जो जहाँ स्मार्ट सिटी डिक्लेयर हो चुकी है, वो जहाँ पे
that's the Railways Minister. These are images of various dignitaries entering Parliament House, some MPs and also people from various walks of lives have been invited to Parliament House for this meeting. It's very interesting how this is, like, in some senses, the place to be. You know, it's like a power statement of sorts as well. You've set this up in a way that you've got the likes of Ratan Tata there at the Central Hall, and Central Hall is where, Raj, you've been several times. You know, this is not the kind of thing that Central Hall also is used to, and as Mr. Acharya just said, it's actually never happened.
Well, the last time, something very significant like this happened, if I recall, was when Mr. Narasimha Rao was being elected as Prime Minister. And that was the surprise election. And so we all assembled in Central Hall and, he was made Prime Minister. And then, the kind of reforms that he unleashed. So I remember that very clearly. Normally we'd land up in Central Hall to schmooze with the various MPs that if you did come in, and chat up with them. But there have been occasions that we've seen, and as you can see, it's all decked up and very significant.
So these are images from inside Parliament House. Arun Jaitley then, Nitin Desai. What a moment this is for Arun Jaitley. The fact is that if the GST is coming together in whatever form it is today, he's had a very important role to play in bringing it together by showing the kind of magnanimity to evolve a consensus.
Yes, I think this is a good time to remember that all of them have contributed, starting with VP Singh's 85 mod VAT, Raja Chelaya's reports, people like Vijay Kelkar, Partha Shom, who did the major reports on the basis of which this is based, the finance ministers, Pranab Mukherjee, Chidambaram. I think all of them have a fair share in the credit. Where I would really compliment Mr. Jaitley is the tactfulness and diplomacy with which he has handled the final stage of getting an agreement amongst people. And I think this is a significant achievement. I go back to what I said in the beginning, the constitutional development
let's look at those images. You've got Amit Shah there, right in front, Kiran Rijiju, Nitin Gadkari, you've got Venkaiah Naidu, all of them now assembling inside the Central Hall of Parliament. And it's a big moment for the BJP because this is going to go down in history as one of the most significant reforms ever. And the BJP has helped put this together. That's S.S. Ahluwalia. He was in rough weather when the whole Darjeeling agitation was on and he wasn't there. But this is indeed a big moment. And the fact is, Arvind Virmani, that the opposition has played an important role as well in helping make this happen. They may not be there in Parliament today, but the fact that we're rolling out the GST, we see Piyush Goyal now, the opposition's also had an important role to play in making it happen.
Absolutely, but I look at it in two parts. One is the constitutional amendment and the promises they had to make with respect to the law and the implementation after that. I think undoubtedly I'm in agreement with Nitin Desai that the first part is really the greatest, one of the greatest achievements, actually the greatest achievement on economic reforms in the history of never taken place. Earlier, we've had privy purses and all kinds of things which are really trivial from the point of view of the economy. So that is very clear. Everybody participated, everybody contributed to its happening. Where the difficulty, of course, is what happened afterwards. So I guess maybe today is not the time to discuss that part of it and the kind of not so good compromises which have been made in the implementation.
But this can be argued both ways. One way of looking at this, Nitin Desai, is that once you've got the GST off the ground, then it is essentially just a tax rate. You can tinker with it whenever you please. But just evolving the consensus, getting the GST started by itself is a big milestone. Everybody says, oh, it's not a perfect GST. There would never have been perfection.
No, it is still first. It's not perfect. It is still a first stage. And I'm very happy that over the past few days, both Mr. Jaitley and others have said that, yes, we will move towards simplification with a single standard rate, bringing in things which have been left out. So it's a useful clarification. But as economists, we were looking forward to something which is even simpler.
Sushma Swaraj, External Affairs Minister. Interestingly there, H.D. Devagowda, former Prime Minister, has been given a special position. Both he and Dr. Manmohan Singh were invited and asked to be present there. You've got Amit Shah, and very interestingly, look at the political significance of it. If I'm not mistaken, you've got Sharad Pawar sitting next to Amit Shah. NCP Supremo, opposition leader Sharad Pawar. That's like poking the Congress in the eye. Ajay Kumar, if you are still with us, can you hear me, Dr. Kumar?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Look at these images, sir. You've got Sharad Pawar,
Rahul,
your ally in the past, maybe in the present too, sitting next to Amit Shah as he introduces the GST at a time when the Congress is not there.
Look, Rahul, so the fact is, we have taken a very principled stand. We have spoken against this drama baji, and if Mr. Pawar or the NCP has decided it, that there is this decision. Congress is a party, and other political parties who have believed that this kind of drama is not in the interest of the country. This is purely a self-promotion exercise by Mr. Modi, because this got nothing to show on it. It's a good move. We supported the GST, but does it need a midnight session, which is not actually a session, just to focus on one person's personality? I think it's doing a great disservice to the country. We definitely believe that it's an important legislation, and we have nothing against other political parties who attend or don't attend. Our stand is very clear that this kind of drama-bazi, and we hope the GST implementation, we have apprehensions, but we hope to be proved wrong. I hope all our apprehensions are wrong, because the country should not suffer. We hope that the Prime Minister, instead of the government...
You're assuming that there will be some kind of a backlash, and you're hoping that if you boycott, you can somehow capitalize on it.
You should ask them, not me. But what I'm saying is there will probably be a backlash.
No, is that the opposition calculation?
Yeah, it could be. But there is already signs of the traders' revolts. Chandni Chowk had one. There was one in Gujarat.
Kanpur, traders sat on a rail track and didn't allow the rail.
Not only that, the disruption, because I am not at all certain that the very tightly linked system that we have built up on GSTN, well, I don't get a credit if Raj, who has sold me something, has not uploaded his invoice. And so I become dependent on him, and you become dependent on me. So it's not just a matter of one person being tax compliant. Everybody has to become tax compliant for the system to work. Second, internet connectivity.
I just want to show what Prakash Javadekar, the HRD minister, had to say as he was heading into parliament. Let's listen in.
हमारे साथ इस समय है HRD मिनिस्टर प्रकाश जावड़ेकर सर। आज ऐतिहासिक दिन है, संसद पूरी तरह सजा हुआ है, क्या क्या देखने को मिलेगा आज?
बहुत अच्छा मिलेगा, क्योंकि एक नई सुधार, आर्थिक बहुत बड़ा सुधार करों में हो रहा है। इसका सामान्य जनता को फायदा होगा, व्यापारियों को फायदा होगा, उत्पादकों को फायदा होगा, आयात निर्यातकों को फायदा होगा, देश को फायदा होगा, और देश के विकास के लिए पैसा मिलेगा और कर चोरी रुकेगी।
कुछ विपक्ष के दल, कांग्रेस इंक्लूडिंग, नहीं आए हैं।
दुर्भाग्य लगता है, अरे उन्हीं का किया हुआ ये कानून, उन्हीं का श्रेय हम देना चाहते, और सबका श्रेय है, और उसमें वो बहिष्कार करते। अपने ही अपत्य का बहिष्कार करने वाली माँ मैंने कभी नहीं देखी।
That's the HRD minister. Here are images from inside Parliament. Very interestingly there, you've got Sharad Pawar, who's been invited to sit with Amit Shah. That's Lal Krishna Advani, the patriarch of the BJP, entering Central Hall. In a few moments from now, the Prime Minister will be there as well. We saw Uma Bharti, Venkaiah Naidu standing up to greet LK Advani. You know, the good thing, Raj, with Mr. Advani has been that he was, at least he didn't voice any public disappointment with not being made president. So, you know, he took it, he was there to facilitate Ramnath Kovind. So he was there all the while. There's no public disappointment being voiced by
He's been very gracious about it. And, you know, what I like about I mean, of course, this is a lot of symbolism that is there. And even as Sharad Pawar did join and sit next to Amit Shah, I mean, this is something that engages the entire country. I have no issues, as I said earlier, with a joint session that is happening right now and talking about the most important tax reform we've had since independence.
That's Sumitra Mahajan, Speaker of the Lok Sabha, Finance Minister Jaitley. Just look at him beam. You know, he's just so happy, so pleased. And, you know,
but he's been a master strategist, I would say.
And he's also very conscious of his place in history.
No, Rahul, if you recall, Mr. Chidambaram had the same opportunity to sort of get the GST going, and somehow he couldn't get it. It was the Congress that actually introduced this in the previous government.
We spoke to some finance ministers, and interestingly, they said that, you know, Mr. Chidambaram really never made an effort to engage with the empowered group of finance ministers. He said that, you know, make your decision, come back to me. Whereas Jaitley, they believed, had been far more accommodating, far more willing to listen, far more magnanimous. At least that's what some of the finance ministers told us. When I asked them, what's the difference? Why couldn't the Congress get it done? How did the BJP get it done?
But the game changer, you know, Rahul, was that the states were told they're not going to lose anything. That sort of changed everything, I thought, in some
And also
senses.
the willingness to compromise on the rates, the multiple rates, so that no state felt that they would make a big loss. There are many things they did. He's made major compromises to keep the states on board. But I think in the long run, that will not be the thing which we will remember. Because we can always change.
So Amar Singh, Praful Patel, Piyush Goyal sitting together. So the government making an attempt to reach out. Usually here, I'll tell you because I go fairly frequently to Central Hall, opposition leaders are bunched up towards the right. You've got government leaders bunched up towards the left, and that's the way it is. That's the way they usually sit here. An attempt being made by Piyush Goyal to walk across the aisle, as it were, sit where the opposition usually sits. The government is trying to make it seem, Rajiv, that they're being as magnanimous as is possible, reaching out to the opposition and saying, yes, you also helped make this happen. Harsimrat Kaur there, Menaka Gandhi, right behind them, Arvind Panagriya, who was in Jaipur today, got held up in a massive air jam of sorts, was very upset with the airlines. Prakash Javadekar, Ramvilas Paswan, Kalraj Mishra. So the BJP heavyweights all lined up. That's Dr. Harshvardhan and the Uma Bharti, Shatrughan Sinha. It's interesting to see that he's right in the middle of the entire BJP pack. Behind them, we're seeing some of the corporate leaders who've been invited. Also, we're seeing here Bibek Debroy from the Niti Aayog. Rajiv.
Yeah, I think, we were mentioning that the significance of Arun Jaitley in putting this together, and some of the secretaries and some of the finance ministers of states that we've also spoken to, they've also said that it would have been really tough for somebody like P. Chidambaram to take this through in this short a time frame. And I think that's where Arun Jaitley's, the respect that he gathers from his opposition, as well as his accommodating nature, has been one of the most significant enablers of the GST Act and the GST tax rolling out
Sanjeev Balyan,
tonight.
we just saw Subhash Goyal of the Z Network, Amit Shah again, and the BJP also making a huge outreach over the past few days at least to ensure that they manage to get their word across. They've been sending ministers all across the country, Mr. Desai, and trying to tell as many people as possible, allay fears, clear misconceptions, and try and win people over for the GST. So the PR machinery has actually been in overdrive.
Yes, I think it has been, though they will have a bit of a job in the days ahead, because they'll have to explain to some of their principal supporters and constituents on why it's good for them.
Nitin, let's give the government credit. I mean, it takes really someone, to be so bold. You just did demonetization. That was again one of the biggest disruptions that happened, and we haven't seen it for a long, long time. And then you decide to go ahead with the GST, another very, very disruptive. While be very beneficial for the country in the long run, but certainly for a government that is fighting elections and all. Of course, back to back.
Amar Singh, one of our correspondents caught him as he was going in. Let's listen to what the mercurial Amar Singh has to say.
I have been joined by Mr. Amar Singh, Member of Parliament from Rajya Sabha. Sir, how historic is this day?
Well, I was not born in 47, so I have not seen that event when Pandit Nehru delivered his historic lecture. But definitely one country, one nation, one tax, free from bureaucratic hassles, involvement of all participants of the federal system, and then by consensus, a historical bill like GST being passed. It needs to be celebrated in a befitting manner, and it is being celebrated. And parties who are opposing it and boycotting it are behaving in the most ridiculous manner. They are behaving like a pendulum, and that is why their situation in national politics has become pendulum-like.
So is it tryst with tax? When GST will be rolled out, will it be a tryst with tax or no?
See, there is no point of any apprehension, because any change, it is inevitable. If it happens, there might be some teething trouble. Don't you remember that for the first time when economic liberalization happened under the leadership of Manmohan Singh, there was a trade union type club of corporate tycoons.
Amar Singh there, he's always perceptive politically, says the opposition is behaving like a pendulum, and it is. Because if you listen to enough leaders from the Congress, some of them are saying there must be a boycott, others saying we support the GST, we're only missing out on this event and I don't know why the party has taken this decision. So they're in they're speaking in different voices. These are images of the Prime Minister's convoy, I think, because in about 2 minutes from now, the President is to arrive. We haven't seen the Prime Minister arrive just yet, so this is likely to be the Prime Minister.
Rahul, watching him, I mean, he is the the center of attention. He's the one that has made all the big changes that have been happening recently. And as we were discussing earlier,
there he is,
one of the boldest, decisions to do this.
We've got Anant Kumar there welcoming him, and after demonetization, so few months after that, to be able to push through another reform which can potentially be disruptive in the short term requires political courage. Demonetization could have gone badly against him. Fortunately, it didn't. He won in Uttar Pradesh and won big. But the man has political courage, of that there can be no doubt. Flanked by Sumitra Mahajan, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, Arun Jaitley to his immediate right, Prime Minister Narendra Modi arriving now in the Parliament building.
And I think people will give him credit, Rahul, for that, because he could lose a lot of votes, and people understand that. If they think that this measure is really needed for the country, I'm sure they'd back him, as they did with demonetization.
And Arvind Virmani, the reality is the people most upset with the BJP and the Prime Minister at this time are his staunchest supporters, the community of traders. The BJP, the longest time being called a community of traders, and if anyone is upset, worked up, riled as it were, it's actually the BJP's core constituency, and the Prime Minister is willing to take them on.
Yeah, that point is very valid, and I think Raj also just said that. This is, if one thing I can as an economist agree on, that it's bold, the PM has been very bold, is in what he thinks is right, being willing and able to rile his traditional BJP constituency of traders. You could say that both for the demonetization and for this. And of course here, I believe, of course, is for a much greater and a clearly widely accepted and widely agreed objective. So yes, I think
but Nitin Desai, the first 2 years of the BJP government, the Prime Minister was accused, we see Hamid Ansari, our Vice President, the Prime Minister was accused of being unimaginative and timid when it came to economic reform. They said he's bold on Pakistan, on China, on foreign policy, he's timid on economy. Demonetization and GST down the road, no one can say that.
ज़्यादा धमाका मत करो.
Economists don't like disruption.
But remember this, that there is no choice. Under the Constitution Amendment, as of September, the authority of the centre and the states to levy all indirect taxes disappears. You had to do this, period. So, in fact, this is also possibly what
But they passed that constitutional amendment bill as well.
But it had to be done. But I think this also possibly helped in getting the states on board.
You know what is the most fascinating part about this law is that except for liquor, every other thing that is excluded from this right now, which is petroleum, which is real estate, it's actually in the act. So when the government wants to, except alcohol, except liquor, everything else is in the act. So when the government wants to turn on the switch, it can do it like with a flip, right? All they have to do is
why not alcohol?
Because alcohol, the states are not willing to discuss.
But they're not even willing to discuss because so many state coffers are funded by alcohol.
Absolutely.
So how will it?
So alcohol, we met Adhya, we met the ministers today. Alcohol, states are just not willing to discuss of today. Maybe 5 years down the line when this GST,
electricity as well.
Electricity.